He used my credit to fund his lifestyle. And I didn't see it until the day a stranger on the phone called me delinquent. It wasn't a dramatic day. It was Tuesday, gray outside, my laptop open on the kitchen table, my daughter's lunchbox beside my elbow, a half-empty cup of coffee going cold while I tried to answer emails before the school run. My phone buzzed once, a credit monitoring alert, new account, balance update, payment missed. I almost dismissed it. I'd been getting harmless alerts for years. My credit score moved a point. My utilization changed, the kind of background noise you ignore because you're busy living. But this alert felt different. It had a lender name I didn't recognize. It had a number that made my stomach tighten. Past due amount, $1,984. I stared at the screen like it might correct itself. Then another notification popped up, as if the universe wanted to make sure I didn't look away. Hard inquiry, auto finance. Approved. My mouth went dry. I hadn't applied for anything. I hadn't even shopped for a car. And yet, there it was. My name, my credit, being used like a key someone else kept in their pocket. That was the legal and financial anchor, and it landed inside the first minute of my morning, clean and brutal. Someone had opened credit in my name, missed payments, and then kept going, still applying, still spending, like my identity was a bank account that never ran out. Upstairs, my husband Mark was humming in the shower, calm, unbothered, like he wasn't building a second life on the back of my score. I didn't confront him right away, not because I was scared of him, because I knew Mark. If I came at him with a question, he'd turn it into a debate. If I came at him with emotion, he'd call it overthinking. So I did what Mark never expected me to do. I went straight to the source. I pulled my credit reports, all 3 bureaus, full files, not the little summary boxes. I sat at the kitchen table and scrolled, slowly, like I was reading an autopsy report. And there it was, a personal loan, $28,500, opened 9 months ago, a business line of credit, $50,000 limit, opened 7 months ago, with my name listed as guarantor. 2 credit cards I had never seen, both close to maxed. A store card with a balance that made no sense for our household. Luxury retailer, 4 figures. And then the one that made my heart stutter. A home equity line of credit. HELOC. Limit $85,000. Opened 5 months ago. Secured by my house. My hands went cold because Mark and I didn't open a HELOC. We never sat down and talked about borrowing against our home. We never discussed renovations or emergencies or investments. We had talked about keeping things stable, about saving, about our daughter's future. And yet, there it was, a lien connected to my address, my name, my credit, like a quiet hook sunk into the foundation. I heard the shower turn off. Water stopped. Silence. Then footsteps. I closed the report window but didn't shut the laptop. I wanted him to see it. I wanted to watch his face. Mark walked into the kitchen in a towel, hair damp, smelling like soap and ease. "Morning," he said, leaning in for a kiss. I didn't move. His smile flickered. "Everything okay?" I turned the laptop toward him. "Explain," I said. He glanced at the screen and did the thing that used to make me doubt myself. He laughed, softly, like I'd shown him a meme. "Ava," he said, "what is this?" "My credit report," I replied. "The part of my life you've been using like a credit card." Mark's eyes narrowed. "I haven't been using anything," he said. I pointed at the HELOC line. Then what is that? I asked. He leaned closer, squinted, then straightened as if his body had decided it didn't like this conversation. That's not what you think, he said. I stared at him. It's literally what it says, I replied. Mark exhaled. That controlled exhale he used when he wanted me to feel like I was being unreasonable just for asking. You're reading it wrong, he said. Those reports are messy. They show old stuff, errors. You know that. Old stuff from 5 months ago? I asked. A HELOC opened 5 months ago, in my name, secured by our house, is not messy. It's a crime. His face tightened at the word crime. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition. Then he tried to smooth it away. Relax, he said. We're fine. It's fine. Fine. That word hit like an insult. Do you want to know what fine looks like? I asked quietly. Fine looks like telling your wife you're borrowing money against her house. Mark's jaw clenched. I didn't borrow against your house, he snapped. Our house, I corrected. He stepped closer. Ava, you're doing that thing again, he said, spinning. My hands started shaking, not because I didn't have control, but because I had too much clarity too fast. I got an alert about a missed payment, I said, and a new auto finance inquiry today, this morning. So tell me, what are you opening now? Mark's eyes flicked away for half a second, then back to mine. Nothing, he said quickly. It's probably a scam. A scam that knows my social security number, my address, my mortgage, and somehow opened a HELOC? I asked. He lifted his hands like I was exhausting him. Okay, he said, voice lowering. Okay, let me talk. I didn't answer. He took a breath, then said the line I think he'd rehearsed for months. I was going to tell you, he said. I didn't want you stressed. I laughed once, sharp. So you chose fraud, I said, to avoid stress. Mark's voice hardened. It's not fraud, he said. It's leverage. It's strategy. Strategy. I stared at him. He continued, faster now, like speed could outrun consequences. My business needed liquidity, he said. Clients paid late. I had to float expenses. I didn't want to touch our savings, so I used credit. Temporarily. It's smart. It's what entrepreneurs do. You used my credit, I said. Our credit, he corrected automatically. No, I said quietly. Mine, because the report is under my name, and the alerts are under my phone, and the missed payments are under my score. Mark's eyes flashed. You're married to me, he said. It's the same household. The same household? That sentence used to mean partnership. Now it sounded like a justification for theft. Did you miss payments? I asked. Mark hesitated. I waited. His silence was a yes. My throat tightened. How much? I whispered. Mark rubbed his forehead. It's not that bad, he said. Mark, I said, voice low. Tell me the number, or I call the lenders and the police. His face hardened. Don't threaten me, he said. I'm not threatening, I replied. I'm choosing reality. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him, the woman who wasn't swallowing his calm voice anymore. Finally, he said, I had a rough month, he admitted. A client backed out. Cash got tight. I covered it. Covered it with my name, I said. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then he tried the pivot. Look, he said, softer. I've been paying for everything. The car, the kids' activities, vacations. Do you think that comes from thin air? I felt heat rise in my face. Vacations? I repeated. You mean the 2 weekends you had to travel for work? Mark's eyes flickered again. And in that flicker, I saw something that made my stomach drop even deeper than the debt. His lifestyle wasn't just business. It was personal. It was dinners and hotels and things that weren't for the household. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I said, "Show me your accounts," calmly. Mark laughed, bitter. "You're not my accountant." I met his eyes. "No," I said. "I'm your wife, whose credit you use like a weapon, and I'm done being polite about it." He stepped back, grabbed his coffee, and said, "I'm going to work. We'll talk later when you're calm." Then he left, like a man who believed leaving the room could pause the consequences. But the consequences didn't pause. They accelerated. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered. A man's voice said, "Ms. Reynolds, this is Meridian Collections. We're calling about your delinquent business line of credit. Your account is now 61 days past due." My mouth went dry. "Business line of credit?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "We've attempted contact by mail, but notices have been returned." Returned? My heart thudded, because that meant Mark wasn't just hiding accounts. He was diverting mail. I forced my voice steady. "What address do you have on file?" I asked. He read it. A P.O. box near the highway, the one Mark passed every day on his commute. I felt my skin go cold. "Sir," I said, "I did not open this account. I need verification of debt and the original application." He hesitated. "Ma'am, your name is listed as guarantor." "I'm telling you I didn't consent," I said. "You will send verification." He gave me an email address to request it. I hung up and sat in my car in a parking lot, staring at my steering wheel like it might keep me from falling apart. Then I opened my bank app. Because the fastest way to understand a lie is to follow where it spends. And the pattern was there, once I looked. Charges I'd brushed off as Mark's work stuff, airline tickets, hotel holds, luxury restaurants, golf resort fees, a designer boutique I'd never stepped into, and the one that made my vision blur, a monthly charge labeled Sable House, $2,200 every month. Sable House wasn't our mortgage. It wasn't our daycare. It wasn't anything in our shared life. It was someone else's. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Mark's empty spot, because he didn't come home until after midnight. And I listened to the quiet of my house with a new understanding. My home wasn't being protected. It was being used. The next escalation came fast. A letter arrived addressed to me, but it didn't look like normal mail. It had bold text, "Final notice." If you've never held a final notice in your hands, here's what it feels like. It feels like someone else has their hands on your throat, gently, politely, legally, and they're squeezing with paperwork. It was from the HELOC lender. It said the line of credit was in default due to missed payments, and that the lender could pursue remedies under the deed of trust. Remedies. I knew what that meant. Liens, foreclosure, forced sale. I walked into Mark's office the next morning while he was still asleep and did something I never imagined I'd do in my own marriage. I opened his desk drawers. I found a folder labeled Finance. Inside were statements, neatly organized. Like Mark wasn't careless. He was intentional. There were loan docs. There were credit card statements. There was the HELOC agreement. And there, clipped to the signature page, was the e-sign confirmation. My name. My social security number. A signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. Because it wasn't written by a pen. It was typed, chosen, clicked, and the email used to sign it, not mine, a new email address, one I'd never seen. Mark had created an identity shadow of me. A separate email, a separate phone number, a separate reality where Ava Reynolds agreed to anything he needed. I took photos of everything, every page, every account number, every timestamp. Then I put it back exactly as I found it. Because evidence isn't evidence if the other person can claim you altered it. At 9:07 a.m., I called a lawyer. Her name was Priya Desai. She specialized in family law. But when I told her about the HELOC and the guarantor line and the diverted mail, her voice sharpened. "This isn't just divorce," she said. "This is fraud, potentially identity theft. And if your house is collateral, we need to act today. Today. Not tomorrow. Not when you're calm. Today." Priya gave me a list, and it was the kind of list that saves people. Freeze your credit at all 3 bureaus. Open a new bank account in your name only. Reroute your paycheck. File a police report for identity theft and forged instruments. Send written disputes to every lender. Request a temporary restraining order in family court, preventing him from incurring debt in your name and preventing him from accessing marital funds. And most importantly, do not confront him again without a plan. Because men like Mark don't panic in loud ways. They panic strategically. I did it all. By that afternoon, my credit was frozen. By evening, my paycheck was rerouted. At 7:30 p.m., I sat in a police station with trembling hands, filing a report that turned my marriage into a case number. When the officer asked, "Do you know who might have done this?" I stared at the beige wall and said, "Yes," quietly. "My husband." It felt like stepping off a cliff, but it also felt like oxygen. Mark came home that night in a good mood, too good. He kissed our daughter's head, asked her about her day, poured himself a drink like he had nothing to hide. I watched him from the kitchen doorway and realized something frightening. He really believed he could talk his way out of anything. He sat at the table and said, "So, you feel better now?" I didn't answer. I slid one paper across the table. Not everything, just enough. A copy of the HELOC default notice. Mark glanced at it, and his smile tightened. He looked up slowly. "Where did you get this?" "In the mail," I said. He exhaled, annoyed. "Okay," he said. "I told you, it's temporary." "It's a lien," I replied. "On our house." Mark's eyes narrowed. "It's not that dramatic. You missed payments," I said, "and you're opening new credit. There was an auto finance inquiry this morning." Mark froze, just for a fraction of a second, then recovered. "That's for the business," he said quickly. "We need a vehicle. It's tax deductible." "Stop," I said quietly. He blinked. "Stop what?" "Stop lying like I'm still sleeping," I said. His jaw clenched. "Ava, I froze my credit," I said. "So if you apply again, it will be denied." Mark's face changed. Not anger first, fear, then anger. "You did what?" he snapped. "I froze my credit," I repeated, "and I filed a police report." The color drained from his face, then it surged back. "You filed a police report?" he said, voice rising. "Are you insane?" "No," I said. "I'm documented." Mark stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "You're trying to ruin me," he hissed. "You ruined me," I replied. "I'm trying to keep a roof over our child's head." He pointed at me, shaking. "You think you're going to win?" he said. "You think the bank cares about your feelings? They'll take the house anyway. You just made it worse." There it was. The threat dressed up as inevitability. Mark wanted me to feel trapped, so I would cooperate, so I would sign whatever he put in front of me, so I would become his shield again. But Priya had already warned me, so I said, "If the bank takes the house, it's because you built a fire inside it." Mark's eyes narrowed, then he grabbed his keys. "I'm leaving," he snapped. "I can't deal with your hysteria." Hysteria. He used that word like a weapon. But it didn't land, because once you see the math, the insults sound like static. He slammed the door, and I stood there in the quiet, heart pounding, knowing the next moves wouldn't be emotional. They'd be legal. The next escalation arrived within 48 hours. Mark emptied the joint account. Not fully, but enough to make me feel it. When I logged in, the balance was a fraction of what it was. Transfers labeled vendor, payroll, client refund, like my marriage was a business ledger. I called the bank and they said, it was authorized by an account holder. Authorized. That's the word the world uses when it doesn't care about betrayal. Priya filed emergency motions that same day. Temporary orders, financial restraining order, exclusive use of the home, an order preventing him from using my personal information, an order compelling full disclosure of all accounts, all P.O. boxes, all debts, all assets. Mark responded with his own filing. He claimed I was unstable. He claimed I was spiteful. He claimed I benefited from the lifestyle. And yes, he actually wrote the word lifestyle, like it was a shared vacation memory. The hearing was set fast. Family court has its own rhythm, and it's a rhythm that terrifies liars, because timelines become mandatory. On the morning of the hearing, Mark arrived in a suit, calm, smiling, like he was going to charm the judge the way he charmed clients. Priya stood beside me with a binder that felt heavier than the air. When Mark spoke, he sounded reasonable. He told the judge he was an entrepreneur. He said cash flow is complicated. He said I was overreacting to normal financial management. Then Priya laid out the evidence, credit reports showing accounts I never opened, the HELOC lien recorded against our house, the P.O. box used for lender notices, the missed payments, the auto finance inquiry, and the police report number. Mark's calm expression cracked when the judge asked him one question. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge said, "did you open credit accounts using your wife's personal information without her consent?" Mark smiled tightly. "Your Honor, we're married," he said. "We share finances." The judge didn't smile back. "That's not an answer," she said. Mark's attorney tried to speak. The judge raised a hand. "I asked him," she said again. Mark swallowed. "I may have applied for accounts for household needs," he said carefully. Priya's voice was soft but sharp. "Your Honor," she said, "if this was for household needs, why were notices diverted to a P.O. box? Why were payments missed? Why is her credit being damaged without her knowledge? And why do we have evidence of a separate email identity used to execute e-signatures?" Mark's jaw tightened. The judge granted temporary orders. Mark was barred from opening new accounts in my name. He was ordered to disclose all credit lines, all debts, all assets. He was ordered to stop diverting mail, and I was granted temporary exclusive use of the home. Mark walked out of court and hissed, "You think this is over?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, it was just starting. Once you force disclosure, the hidden world has to surface. Priya hired a forensic accountant. Her name was Elena Cortez. Elena didn't care about Mark's charm. She cared about where the money went. Within weeks, she traced charges across the secret cards and lines of credit. The spending wasn't business liquidity. It was hotels and high-end dining, and designer purchases and private club dues and Sable House. The monthly $2,200. Elena found it. Sable House was a luxury apartment lease in a building with concierge service under a woman's name, a woman named Talia Grant. Mark was listed as authorized occupant. My stomach turned when Priya showed me the lease. So he wasn't just funding his lifestyle, Priya said quietly. He was funding a second home. And then Elena found the bigger thing. A company, formed 6 months ago. Reynolds Ventures LLC, Mark's name, and my name, listed as managing member. I stared at the document, hands shaking. I never formed an LLC, I whispered. Elena's eyes were flat. He used your identity to qualify for financing, she said, and to shift liability. Shift liability. That phrase tasted like the center of the trap, because if the LLC defaulted, creditors would come after the guarantor. Me. The next escalation came in the form of a process server at my door. A lawsuit. One of the business lenders had filed. They were suing the LLC and me personally as guarantor. The complaint named Ava Reynolds. It listed my address. It demanded payment. And it included an exhibit, the guarantee signature page, with my electronic signature. My hand shook as I held it, because this was no longer just credit score damage. This was court. This was judgment risk, liens, wage garnishment, seizure, the kind of consequences Mark had been counting on to scare me into silence. Priya didn't panic. She filed an answer denying liability and asserting identity theft. She filed motions to stay enforcement pending fraud investigation. She sent subpoenas to the lenders requesting the original application files, IP logs, call recordings, and identity verification steps. Elena continued tracing, and then the 70% twist arrived. The moment everything shifted from he used my credit to he built a machine to own me. Elena found a recorded document at the county, a second deed of trust. Not the HELOC I knew about. Another one. A private lender. $120,000. Recorded 3 months ago. Secured by our house. Borrower listed as Mark Reynolds and Ava Reynolds. My name again. My stomach flipped. Priya's voice went very quiet. This is worse, she said, because private lenders move fast, and they don't play nice. I stared at the recorded deed. My signature was there. Not a typed click. A scanned signature, lifted and pasted. The kind of forgery that looks believable until you compare it to real documents. He didn't just use your credit, Priya said. He used your home as collateral, twice, without telling you. He was building leverage. Leverage. That word finally made sense. Mark wasn't borrowing because he was desperate. He was borrowing because debt gave him power. Debt gave him time. Debt gave him a way to keep a lifestyle running, even when income didn't match. And debt gave him a weapon to hold over my head. Because if I threatened him, he could threaten the house, threaten my stability, threaten our daughter's school district, threaten everything. Elena traced where that $120,000 went. It didn't go to business expenses. It didn't go to household bills. It went to 2 places. First, a wire transfer labeled Sable House Deposit, a huge upfront payment. Then, a cashier's check used at an auto dealership for a luxury SUV registered under Mark's LLC. Not under our family, not under my name, under his entity. He used my signature to borrow against my home, to put a woman in a luxury apartment, and to buy himself a new car. That was his lifestyle, not ours. And that was the moment my fear turned into something harder. Because once you see the structure, you stop blaming yourself for not noticing the bricks. Mark had built a second life with my identity as the foundation. Priya moved fast. She filed an emergency motion to enjoin the private lender from taking action on the deed of trust, alleging forgery and fraud. She filed a liens pendens, a public notice of dispute, so no one could claim good faith ignorance. She referred the case to the district attorney's office for identity theft and filing false instruments. She also filed a civil action to quiet title, to remove fraudulent liens from the house. And she told me something that sounded simple, but felt like a door opening. Once we get an order setting aside the liens, she said, your house becomes yours again, on paper, where it matters. Mark responded exactly how you'd expect. He tried to charm, then he tried to intimidate, then he tried to bargain. He called me late one night, voice soft. Ava, he said, we can fix this without destroying everything. I didn't answer. He continued, I'll pay it down. I'll refinance. I'll take you off everything. Just stop making it criminal. Stop making it criminal. Like I had invented the fraud. I said calmly, you made it criminal when you forged my name. Silence. Then his voice turned cold. You don't understand what you've done, he whispered. Those lenders don't care about your story. If you push this, you'll lose the house anyway. There it was again, the inevitability threat. I took a breath, and I said, then you should have thought about that before you used our house like an ATM. Mark hung up. The next escalation came from the private lender, a notice of default. They had moved faster than I believed possible. The notice threatened foreclosure if the loan wasn't cured. My hands shook as I read it. Priya filed an emergency order the same day. We went before a judge. Priya presented the forged signature comparisons, the lack of my consent, the police report, the forensic accountant's tracing. The judge issued a temporary restraining order, halting foreclosure activity pending investigation. It was a piece of paper, but it felt like someone had put a hand between my throat and the blade. Meanwhile, the lender subpoenas came back with something even stronger. One lender produced an IP log showing the application was submitted from Mark's office building. Another produced a call recording, Mark's voice, answering security questions, as if he were me. He knew my mother's maiden name. He knew my first car. He knew my childhood street. He knew them because he had been living in my life, studying me like a password. Hearing his voice impersonate me made my stomach twist, because it wasn't just financial betrayal. It was identity violation. He didn't just take money. He took my ability to be believed. And that's the thing that terrifies you most, not the debt, but the thought that someone can use your name to sign away your future while you're packing lunches. The power reversal began when Mark finally had to testify. Family court ordered him under oath to disclose all accounts and explain the liens. Under oath is where confident liars start sweating. Mark sat on the stand with a calm face. He tried to frame it as marital finances. He said I knew about the borrowing. He said I benefited. Priya didn't argue. She asked him one question at a time, like pulling threads. Mr. Reynolds, she said, what is Sable House? Mark blinked. A vendor, he said. A vendor, Priya repeated, and her tone stayed neutral. So you'll have no issue explaining why Sable House is a residential lease under Talia Grant's name, with you listed as authorized occupant, and why loan proceeds secured by your marital home were wired to cover her deposit. Mark's face tightened. He looked at his attorney. The judge watched him. Mark swallowed. "I don't know who that is," he said. Priya played the lease signature page with his name. Then she played a photo from the concierge building security log. Mark, walking in with a key fob. Then she showed the wire record. Mark's calm expression started cracking. Priya continued. "Did you create an email address in your wife's name?" she asked. Mark hesitated. "Did you submit electronic signatures on her behalf?" she pressed. Mark's attorney objected. The judge overruled. Mark's jaw clenched. "I handled paperwork," he admitted. "Answer yes or no," Priya said softly. Mark's voice came out smaller. "Yes," he said. "Yes." One word. And the room shifted. Because that word wasn't about feelings. It was about acts, forgery, identity theft, misrepresentation. Now it wasn't Ava's accusation. It was Mark's admission. Under oath. In a court record. After that, everything moved faster. The district attorney filed charges. Identity theft, forgery, filing false instruments, fraud. Mark was arrested on a Thursday morning at his office. I didn't watch. I didn't celebrate. I sat at my kitchen table and held my daughter's drawing in my hands. A picture of our house with a big sun above it. And I cried quietly. Not because I wanted Mark punished, because I wanted the world to finally say what I had been living. This was real. Mark called me from jail that night. His voice was thin, terrified, stripped of confidence. "Ava," he whispered, "please." I closed my eyes. He said, "Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you knew. Please, I'll fix everything." Fix. That word tasted like poison now. "You want me to lie?" I said quietly. He breathed hard. Just say it was shared finances," he pleaded. "Please." I opened my eyes and stared at the wall. Then I said, "You used my credit to buy your lifestyle," I said. "Now you want my voice too." He made a sound like a sob. Then anger surfaced, because anger was his favorite mask. "You're ruining our daughter's father," he hissed. I took a breath. "You ruined him," I said. "I'm just not covering it anymore." And I hung up. The final stretch was paperwork, court orders, record corrections, the slow, steady work of undoing what he did. Priya negotiated with lenders using the criminal case evidence. Accounts were reclassified as identity theft. 2 credit cards were removed from my file. The business line guarantee was challenged successfully because the application verification was weak and the recording proved impersonation. The court in the lender lawsuit stayed proceedings and later dismissed my personal liability once fraud was established. The private lender agreed to release the fraudulent deed of trust after the court issued an order setting it aside. The HELOC lender, faced with the same evidence, agreed to unwind the account and remove the lien. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Because once the record exists, stamped, filed, supported by logs and recordings and admissions, even institutions move. My credit score climbed back slowly, like a body healing from bruises. My bank account stopped bleeding. The joint account was addressed through divorce proceedings with court-supervised accounting. And the biggest power reversal, the one Mark never anticipated, happened when the judge finalized the divorce orders. The judge awarded me the house, not because she pitied me, because the evidence showed Mark used fraudulent debt to endanger it. He was ordered to pay restitution. He was ordered to reimburse attorney's fees. He was ordered to stay away from my financial identity permanently through a protective order that spelled out, in plain language, that he could not open accounts, sign documents, or represent himself as me. Plain language. That's what saved me. Not speeches, not rage, paperwork, records, and the quiet decision to stop letting a calm voice erase the math. Months later, when the last lien release was recorded, Priya handed me the stamped document across her desk. Recorded release. No longer encumbered. I stared at it, hands trembling. "Breathe," Priya said gently, and I realized I had been holding my breath since the first alert. That night I stood in my driveway and looked at my house. The porch light warm, my daughter's laughter spilling through the window, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not happiness exactly, stability. Real stability. The kind you don't perform. The kind you prove. Mark thought credit was invisible. He thought the consequences would land slowly enough for him to outrun them. He thought my trust was an unlimited line. He thought if he sounded calm enough, the world would rearrange itself to match his story. It worked, until it didn't. Because there's one thing men like Mark always forget. Credit isn't just numbers, it's timestamps, IP logs, signature trails, recorded deeds, lender notes, courthouse filings, and a paper path that doesn't care how charming you are. And the day I stopped asking him to explain and started building a file was the day his lifestyle stopped being funded by my identity and started being paid for by his consequences. Now, when my phone buzzes with an alert, I don't flinch. I check it. I read it. I document it. And I remind myself of the lesson Mark taught me in the cruelest way possible. If someone can use your credit to fund their lifestyle, they will. Until you make your life bigger than their lie. Bigger on paper, bigger in court, bigger in record. Because once the record exists, you don't have to argue with a liar. You just turn the page and let the truth collect what it's owed.